In this video, we'll talk about solving proportions. So let's do a quick review on what a proportion is. So a proportion is an equation involving two ratios. So for instance, 2/3 is equal to 8/12. The idea is both of these things are 2/3, and both of these are ratios. Ratios are kind of like a fraction, I guess, in a lot of ways, but there are some differences. For a lot of intents and purposes, you can treat them as you would fractions, especially for solving. So this is a quick review, what a proportion is, what a ratio is, a little bit of vocab for you. So let's jump right in. Let's say we want to solve for x, and there's a couple ways we can solve these proportions. So I have x divided by 12 is equal to 15/36. And I might be looking at this thinking, oh, if I multiply 12 by 3, I get 36. That would logically dictate that x should be 1/3 of 15, which means that x should be 5. Now, this method is what they call scale factor. The idea is you're figuring out what's the number that you have to multiply or divide by to get from one number to the other. And this will work pretty well, especially if in a case like this where the numbers are pretty simple. However, sometimes it can get a little more difficult. So let's take a look at an example where it is a little difficult. If I'm looking at this, how do I get from 5 to 6 or 6 to 5? I'm not sure off the top of my head. But something that we can do is what's called cross multiplication. So I can multiply x times 5, so 5x, is going to be equal to the product of 6 times 11. And that comes from the idea of, okay, if I want to get rid of this x down here, I'd multiply both sides by it. And if I want to get rid of this 11 down here, I'd multiply both sides by it, which would result in this equation. Cross multiplication is just kind of a short way to think about it. So cross multiplication only works if we're solving a proportion. Just a worthy note there. So this would tell me 5x is equal to 66, which means that x is equal to 66/5. Now, I don't know if I ever would have guessed that. Looking back, finding the scale factor would have been a little bit difficult. I would have had to multiply by 11/5. And sometimes the cross multiplication can be just a simpler brute force method on how to get there without having to think about a scale factor. Now, you can apply scale factor here, but path of least resistance, I believe, would be doing cross multiplication. Your choice. At the end of the day, you do it how you want, and either way is totally fine.